Hey guys, so welcome back to the channel. And this week what we're going to be doing is talking about the Neo Geo AES. That's the Advanced Entertainment System. So this is a console that was released by SNK in the 90s, and it's not one that people know too well. They might know about the Neo Geo MVS from the arcades back then. But, you know, SNK was really the first company that truly delivered on the promise of taking arcade original hardware and bringing it home. And that's exactly what this thing is. This is basically a consoleized MVS, and it plays all of the arcade games from that era, but at home. And so not too many of these were made, especially in the United States. They're pretty expensive and hard to come by. And today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some upgrades on this one. So this one totally works. It's in great shape, but it's a totally stock. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the BIOS chip and remove it and then install what's known as a UniBIOS. So this chip gives you lots of extra functionality that you would normally find on an MVS. So I think you can change region, you can add cheats. There's like a ton of functions and features. And so what we're going to do first is remove the original BIOS, install a socket, and then that'll allow us to put this UniBIOS in there. And it also means that the system can easily be upgraded to different versions of the UniBIOS, or you can always make it stock again without any real trouble. The other thing that we're going to do today is we're going to do an RGB bypass on this system. So with the Neo Geo hardware, there's actually quite a lot of internal variability in terms of the quality of its RGB output. Some versions of the hardware have really good RGB, some have intermediate, and some have really poor. It just depends on when the system was released and what version of the hardware it is. This one is not bad from what I understand, but it can definitely be made better, and thankfully it's a very easy modification to make, and really all you need are some 150 ohm resistors. So today we're going to take this thing apart, we're going to do these modifications and make the system even better than it's ever been. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so taking apart a Neo Geo AES is actually super easy. It's all Phillips screws. The only thing you have to be mindful of is the fact that these little feet are really fragile after 30 or so years of existence. So it's pretty common for them to fall apart. It's not actually the end of the world though, because you actually can purchase replacements for them. So I'm going to do my best, but if they go, my friend who owns this machine has already purchased replacements, so he's prepared to do that. Oh yeah, this is bad. Oh man, they're just crumbling to pieces. All right, let's see what I can do. Yep, that's a mess. That's just a complete mess. All right. All right, so the system is now removed from the shell, and we can take a look at the entire motherboard. It's pretty huge. It's pretty impressive, actually. So you can see here, this is the BIOS chip that we are going to be removing. It's right next to the Zilog Z80, which is used as a coprocessor on the Neo Geo hardware. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove this, and I'm going to do this the same way that I do in other cases where I have a through-hole chip that needs to be removed. So I usually start by adding fresh solder to it, and then afterwards I use a desoldering gun to remove the old and the new stuff. And then usually there's a little bit left behind. So what I'll do is I'll use either a heat gun to kind of work at it and loosen up the last little bits of solder, and then the chip falls right out. Sometimes I might use Chip Quick as well. That's a low melt solder that allows you to very easily, work out this chip and get it removed safely. The important thing when you're doing stuff like this is to never use force. If you use force, the chances of pulling a trace are pretty much guaranteed. You can also damage the traces that are underneath. As you can maybe see over here, there's a whole bunch of little traces right here that are super susceptible to being destroyed. So the trick with this is to take your time and be patient and trust in the method to get results. The RGB bypass is going to be up here in this section, and so we'll go into that once the UniBIOS has been installed. Okay, so all I did after that was just give it a quick little cleaning of alcohol. And hopefully you guys can see all of the traces are intact, all of the vias are intact. The same is true on the opposite side. So I very highly recommend that combination of adding solder, desoldering, and then using a heat gun to get rid of any through-hole chip like this. It's always pretty reliable and gets very nice results. Here's the chip that we removed. You can see that all of the legs are nice and clean. I didn't have to do anything to it. I didn't even need flux. I just followed those 3 steps, and yeah, so we're good to go. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and now we'll add a socket, and once we take care of that, then the UniBIOS will be ready to test. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the RGB bypass, and so there are some nice simple guides for this online. So if you go to Retro RGB, they have a guide. That's for a 3.6 version of the motherboard. So I'll tell you what kind I have here. So you have to go onto the silk screen and take a look. And so this is a Neo Geo AES 3.5. So you can usually find that information on the board, and people have documented what all of these motherboard revisions look like. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go ahead and remove these 3 capacitors right here. And you can see over here on the board there are 3 6.8 kilo ohm resistors that are labeled. We're also going to remove all of those. And then finally, this capacitor here needs a little bit of stuff done to it. So we're going to just lift a leg on it and then wire that positive leg over to a specific point on the Sony CXA chip. So first things first, we've got hot glue on top of these capacitors. This is something that's done at the factory. And for some people, this looks intimidating or stressful, but there's a trick to getting rid of hot glue when you don't want it. All you got to do is just take a little isopropyl alcohol, add it, and then it just comes right off like that. Very simple. All right, so I'm going to get out the desoldering gun again. We're going to start removing some of these components, and then we'll start wiring things up. Alright, so now all of the components are removed, and so we're basically into the home stretch of this RGB bypass. So what we've got to do now is we're going to take 3 150 ohm resistors and we're going to connect them to 3 points on the motherboard, and you can see I've already pre-tinned them over here. And then from there, those 150 ohm resistors are going to terminate onto various points on the multi-out for R, G, and B. The only other thing we have to do is we're going to need to send one wire going from the Sony CXA chip, which is right over here, and we're going to go from this pin all the way onto the other side of the board, and we're going to connect that up to the positive leg of that remaining 470 microfarad capacitor. So let's get to it. Okay, so we are back and all of the soldering is complete. And so I just wanted to show you everything that I did. And so you can see here, these are the 3 RGB lines. When I did the soldering beforehand, I realized actually that I made a mistake. So initially, this middle line here, which I think is green, I had actually soldered it to the wrong pin. I had soldered it to this little guy right over here, and that was a mistake. It needs to actually go to this little pin right over here on the right hand side, or at least facing from where I am right now. So you know, always proofread your work and make sure everything is correct before you close things up or test it out. So I did happen to take a quick look and realized, oh, I actually had soldered it to the wrong pin, so I very quickly remedied that. So yeah, those are your RGB lines, and you've got 150 ohm resistors, and then I used heat shrink tubing to protect them so they don't bump into any of these other components that are here. Then I've got my Kynar wire, and it's connected up to this pin here on the CXA chip. And then when you flip it over here, you can see this is the remaining capacitor, and that wire is connected up to the positive leg, which has been detached from the board. And yeah, and that's it. So we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and assemble this thing and give it a test. Okay, so I've got the Neo Geo plugged in, connected to the OSSC, and looks like it's good so far. One thing I can definitely tell already is the pixels are really, really sharp. There's no checkerboarding, there's no gel bars of any kind, so the RGB bypass was a success, and you could see the UniBIOS startup screen, so that also tells us that the UniBIOS was installed successfully as well. So I'm just going to watch this for a second and just see how things look. Yeah, it looks amazing. So yeah, I would say that, you know, this modification was a success, and this Neo Geo looks better than ever before, and now it has a bunch of nice new features like region changing and cheat codes and a variety of different features that come with the UniBIOS installation. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. If you guys like this kind of content, then consider subscribing to the channel. I have Fix It Friday videos out every Friday, and sometimes I try to do a little bonus video every now and then when I can. Please let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and then also if you're interested in getting anything modified for yourself, you can also check out my website, which is oneuprestorations.com. So yeah, thanks again for watching guys. I will see you next time.